soon became central to Bruce's act.
It's an obscenity circus that's been going on for about 5 years. An illiterate view of the law is that what's obscene is dirty screwing and fancy screwing. And if a guy can tear off a piece of ass with class, then he's cool.
This guy was not allowed to be a stand-up comic anymore because of the things he said.
It was a sad end for the funny man who was brought to his knees by legal fees and heroin addiction. In 1966, Lenny Bruce died from a morphine overdose.
If the comedy world had a civil rights movement, he's Martin Luther King.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's the comedians!
I think Bernard Manning's a genius.
Copper pulled a fellow up in his car. He said, "You know, your wife fell out the car half a mile back." He said, "Thank God for that, I thought I'd gone deaf."
A lot of his material stinks, but his timing is impeccable.
Enoch Powell died, knocked on the gates of heaven. And the voice said, "Who that?" Oh, he said, "Forget it."
If any of the young guys go and see him, they'll appreciate the man's delivery. He's unique, he's great.
Star of 70s stand-up show The Comedians and owner of Manchester's legendary comedy club, The Embassy, Bernard Manning is still one of the hardest working and popular club comics in the country. His peers may admire his comic timing, but he's also the name that's become synonymous with some dubious material from a very different era.
This black fella walked in this pub with a fucking big parrot on his shoulder. And he said, "Where do you get that from?" And the parrot said, "Africa, there's fucking millions of them." I've made loads of racist remarks and I don't give a fuck. They say you never appear on television again. I say, well, you're about £8 million too fucking late. Them French, I don't fucking trust them, I'll tell you. I went in the cafe over there. I said, "Have you got frog's legs?" He said, "Yes." I said, "Up in the kitchen and get us a fucking ham sandwich."
He says, "I have a go at everyone." He doesn't. He doesn't have a go at working class Mancunians. They're the salt of the earth. Some of them are. But he doesn't have a go at everyone. He has a go at every minority, apart from his audience. I don't give a fuck who I upset. This is my country. I'll say what I want.
We want you in Bernard might not exactly be the darling of Middle England, but he's gone further than any other British stand-up by being the unlikeliest comedian ever to play Las Vegas. Soon you'll come back to...
I went over America and stormed America. Jewish gags, Japanese gags, all sorts.
My old school teacher was Jewish, what they call an unorthodox Jew. He was a Nazi. Just been on the news, Israel's declared war on Egypt and the Italians have surrendered just in case.
Come and see us again.
See, comedy is like football. There's Premiership, First Division, Second Division, Third Division of Vauxhall Conference. I'm top of the Premiership League. I've filled theatres, I've filled clubs. Most of the comics I know, they couldn't draw flies. Yorkshire couple on holidays in Spain. First day there, she says, "George, we forgot the Bisto." He says, "Have we?" She says, "Aye." She said, "But I think that couple across the road, I think they're English," she said. "Knock and see if they've any Bisto." And he went over. Fella comes to the door, he says, "Asked any Bisto?" He said, "Fuck off, you Spanish cunt." I can't stop, because if I stopped, I'd fucking die. And I've never died in my life.
Join us after the break for the best of the rest of the greatest stand-ups ever.
That was weird. When your gran called your granddad, and you were there going, "He's your granddad too?"
Welcome back to the show where avant-garde meets old guard.
I went to the doctor last week. I said, "Can I have some sleeping pills for the wife?" He said, "Why?" I said, "She woke up."
Anybody here from animal rights? Because this is fucking fur, okay?
From the Holocaust to her own husband's suicide, when it comes to material for her routines, this next comedian knows no boundaries.
I say what I want, I do what I want,
I don't even think about crossing lines. Let me tell you, I don't give a shit if you're white or black or yellow or green as long as you can do my hair. It is, oh, yes!
She doesn't sit around wondering how charming she is. She belts out all kinds of jokes by the thousands.
I once had a rapist fall asleep in the middle. My mother, all I ever heard growing up is, why can't you be like your cousin Sheila? Why can't you be like your cousin Sheila? Sheila had died at birth. And I just...
She's not guilty of it very often, but she's sometimes so determined to tell a joke, she's so ambitious about a laugh that she sometimes overdoes it.
And I was there in New York for 9/11, which is just, oh, God, we ended up with 2,400 widows, each who finally this year, ended up with a check for $5 million each. And I lost friends, and my daughter lost a lot of friends in it. I started doing the jokes immediately. What would you rather have? Someone who farts and drools in their sleep, or a nice check? $5 million. At least there got to be 3 women out there that were going, Harry's dead, boo-hoo.
He's never really done anything on TV because he's far too good live.
He's the best comic of his generation, which sadly is my generation.
I did A-level, did three A-levels, and I was having a bit of trouble choosing which ones I was going to take, so I went to my English teacher. I said, Mr. Spinoza, what A-levels do you think I should take? And he said, think of the things you like doing and simply take the subjects involving those. So I'm doing eating, sleeping and wanking at A-level.
You know, if he wasn't a comic, he'd be kind of like the weird nerdy kid on the train, you know.
I used to get picked on quite a bit. I'd be walking down the corridor, people would go, "Oi, specky fool eyes!" And I'd go, no. 2 eyes. 2 convex lenses. Think on, pal, all right.
I was standing at the back of the Stand, which is a little comedy club in Edinburgh, about 2 years ago, watching Daniel Kitson's Edinburgh show. I was watching it with Mark Thomas. And we both kind of turned to each other at the end, and we were not happy because we had a sense that we should probably give up, because I felt like that night you sort of saw stand-up get about as good as it ever could.
I went through 3 years of speech therapy, right? And the best thing that they could come up with for me was, OK, Daniel, in you come, sit down, here we go. In order... Yeah, laugh it up, bitch. In order to stop yourself from stuttering, simply tap out each individual syllable of every word you say, like so, onto your right thigh. Hello? What say we get down to some loving? No, madam, come back here. There's no need for the police here, madam.
At number 26, the stand-up comedian for the loaded generation, Frank Skinner.
If I'm having sex face-to-face with a woman, I will put on a bit of a show, you know. For morale, more than anything else. I'll be there going... smashing this.
What I think is brilliant about Frank's early stand-up, and still a lot of stuff that he does now, is that you know, he's thought of as kind of bawdy or whatever. What he in fact is kind of microscopic and graphic in the way that he talks about sex.
Our relationship was based on me giving her oral sex. That was it. I'd walk through that door, she'd go, fucking lick this now! And deeper, that was her thing. Deeper, come on, deeper! She'd go, deeper! Well, I've tried, but I don't know if you've ever tried getting a little bit deep. Sometimes it's like you overreach, right? And you feel like you've pulled a muscle in your tongue. She'd be going, deeper, come on, deeper! I could taste the fucking chair!
I think he's changing, and has changed as a person, as a comedian, since I first met him, and I think, you know, the stuff he'll do later will be maybe different to the stuff that he first did, but he's still one of the most natural comedians in the country.
Not only have I let you down, but I feel I've let myself down.
Steve Coogan is a wonderful comedian.
What are you fucking looking at?
Because he invents a character and becomes the character.
Hey, do you know what I'm fucking sick and tired of? People coming up to me saying, Paul, you're a sexist. I'm not a sexist, I'm a radical feminist. I think you've got to be these days if you want to get your end away.
Steve Coogan is one of the most prolific comedy character actors of the last 30 years. And while most of his creations belong in the land of sketch, sitcom and spoof chat shows, some have found their way into doing stand-up.
His character Paul Carp was originally called Duncan Disorderly, but to be taken seriously as a viable person in the real world, he had to change it.
Do you know, before I come out tonight, I went to Chippy, right, get a bit of nose bag. Right, I'm stood at the back of the queue, there's a fucking student at the front of the fucking queue, right, writing a fucking cheque for a bag of chips.
It's just something really thrilling about seeing someone who is that good at being a pissed person. That was just genius.
Like all good character comedians, Steve couldn't go long without cross-dressing and created a sister for Paul, the promiscuous Pauline.
It's actually quite a sweet character, even though she's a massive slag.
No, it's called Arnie. Yeah, Arnie, short for Arndale Centre. It's Arnie short for Arnold Schwarzenegger, because that's a good role model, isn't it, for a little boy, eh? I'll be back, eh? Your fucking dad won't, will he?
I think if I was able to come up with characters as funny as Paul Carp, then I would do that instead of what I do.
Steve Coogan hasn't performed stand-up since he ditched the characters of Paul and Pauline. Instead, he decided to concentrate on Alan Partridge, Tommy Saxondale and other TV and film projects.
Yeah, so, no, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, you've been drinking again, Paul. No, well, yes, but I know when to stop. Do you know, I know if I'm lying on my back, choking on my own vomit, I know that I should only have one, maybe two more drinks. And after that, I better stick to shorts. Yeah, I'm going to find the bar. See you later.
At number 24, the man who apparently made stand-up sexy in the 80s. We had Stan Boardman. America had the often controversial Eddie Murphy.
You know, I mean, I remember watching Delirious, which you can't even get now, because if you do watch Delirious again now, you just go, I can't believe you got away with this shit. Like, the ignorance.
This shocking routine from the now deleted Delirious video uses the AIDS epidemic to get laughs from an enraptured audience.
Ladies be saying, gay men are the best friends to have. Because they don't want anything from you, you don't want anything from them. You can just hang out and you can be with them, it's fun, and you can talk to them and all that bullshit, and they be hanging out with them. You know what's real scary about that? That new AIDS shit. AIDS is scary because it kills motherfuckers, AIDS. Kills people. It petrifies me because girls be hanging out with them. And one night they can be in the club having fun with their gay friend and give them a little kiss and go home with their AIDS on their lips. Get home with their husband, and like 5 years later, Mr. Johnson, you have AIDS. He goes, AIDS? But I'm not a homosexual. Sure, you're not a homosexual.
You know, you can kind of understand why he doesn't do stand-up anymore, because the type of movies that he does nowadays, it doesn't really suit it if he's doing kids' films about talking dogs, you know, for him to then be standing on stage talking about eating pussy. It's not gonna fit.
You know, he's always like... It's on, you know, get your fucking...
You know, because I lost my girlfriend, and it's very difficult. You know, if you, what do you say? If you see a girl, you think, what do I say? You're out of practice. You know, it's, what do you say? What do you do? You get these guys called Craig, and they go, hey, my name's Craig. How you doing? And girls go, oh, excitement, and they go. For me, around about here, my brain seizes up. It's sure I see a girl, and I think, my name's Lee. Do you want a drink? Do you want to dance? I mean,
At number 23, the physical whirlwind that is Lee Evans.
I think Lee Evans is borderline genius. No, it's not fair saying any comic's a genius. No, they've not invented anything. But I think he's the closest thing to pure comedy that you're going to get.
He said, don't you? I said, don't you? He said, don't you? I said, don't you? So,
Shite. There's not a fucking word that would describe Joe Brand to me, the unattractive, fucking awful, unfunny, lefty fat cow.
The fact that he's being so horrible about me and other people obviously means he's very threatened by us, and that makes me really happy.
Whether you love or hate her, or even if you want to sit on the fence like Jim Davidson, Joe Brand has been one of Britain's most outstanding comedians of the last 20 years.
The tabloids like to create a sort of caricature, and it suited them at the time to say that I was a man-hating lesbian.
Now, what I was saying before about long-term sex, you know, it does get boring, and I think a lot of couples, after a few years, it's just like a bit of that, innit, on a Friday night after, because can't be bothered. And lots of blokes I know say that women are actually very bad at doing that because they do it too hard and it hurts. We know, that's why we do it.
Because of my size and the way I look generally, what was going to happen when I got on was I would be heckled pretty much straight away. In fact, even before I got on a lot of the time. So I just thought, well, if I have a go at myself, perhaps that'll sort of soften the audience's attitude towards me a bit.
And you know, when I was at college, I was a very big drinker, and I'd have nights when I get so pissed, right, that I couldn't remember what I'd done the night before. And I'd wake up on the bus the next morning with one shoe on, no knickers, and carpet burns all over my chin. Where the bloke had tried to drag me out of his flat, obviously, but...
I think there's genuine sort of affection for Jo. Whenever I've seen her, the audience genuinely sort of this rush of affection.
Male sexual fantasies tend to feature two lesbians and a donkey, don't they? With the Match of the Day theme playing in the background. With me, someone said to me once, what's your favourite sexual fantasy? And I said that you run a Hoover over the place at least once a week.
I've never wanted to educate people to change their political views or anything. I've just wanted to make them laugh, and as long as I can do that, I'm quite happy.
The ladies not for turning.
Bastards! I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen.
America gave us legendary political commentators like George Carlin, Bill Hicks and Lenny Bruce. Here in this country, we had Ben Elton.
Jacques Chirac, the Prime Minister of France, was at the EEC and he said a rude word.
He was fast, he was furious, he was radical.
A rude word to Mrs. Thatcher. Said something like, Coolion.
He is a force of nature. And I think that's what comes across in his live stuff.
Coolion. Now, we have had it translated and we can't tell you what it is because it's rude.
It's an incredible array of ideas performed with phenomenal conviction.
All we can say is they normally come in pairs. Mrs. Thatcher doesn't have any, but she's got the country by them. That's all we can say.
Ben Elton first appeared on our screens on the Oxford Roadshow in 1981.
I do it for love, right? Love of being paid. My name's Ben Elton. Good night.
But he became a household name when he compared Channel 4's cult stand-up show, Saturday Live.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome to Saturday Live.
I don't think there was any other candidate when they decided to go with a constant host for the second and third seasons. I don't know who else you'd have asked but Ben.
Mark Thatcher, he's having a lovely time. Let's hope he has a lovely wedding night. Let's hope he makes love better than his mum runs the country, eh? Like hell to get in and then do Sweet FA for 7 years, you know. It's not is it?
He became one of the biggest stand-up comics. And the reason that that happened was because he caught the zeitgeist, he was prolific, he could constantly rewrite, he does constantly rewrite, and he was talking about the things that people were talking about at the time.
But Mrs. Thatcher was very upset. She wiped away a tear and she was very upset because she loves Mark. She should be philosophical. She should look at it this way. She's not so much gaining a daughter as losing a dickhead. I think that's just...
What I find most disappointing about him, really, is that he was this arch political comedian, you know, boycott his sanctions for South Africa and all that kind of business, and then he writes a musical about Queen, who famously played Sun City.
What's the man doing? It's a disgrace.
Hello, darkness, my old friend. I've walked into this wall again.
Our next comedian started out as a singer on the folk music circuit in the 70s, but despite nearly 30 years of mainstream popularity, back then he was a pioneer of observational stand-up comedy.
When the nutter gets on the bus, does the nutter sit next to you? The nutter always sits next to me.
When Jasper Carrott started on TV, he was seen as very kind of new and different kind of comic.
Eh? Has anyone seen my camel? What's a nutter?
All those classic routines like Nutter on the Bus, you know, in a way, the embryo on which a lot of modern observational comedy has grown out of.
I've got an atom bomb here, you know.
It's a corned beef tin, you know. Because once you've got the nutter, everybody else can enjoy it then, can't they? What's he got? He's got a corned beef tin!
Jasper has the ability of reading from a telephone book and making it funny. I remember, I don't know how long ago, it was 20 years ago, Jasper was the first person to do the routine all about reading out the insurance claims.
These are Australian motor insurance claim form statements. The pedestrian had no idea which direction to run, so I ran over him. I told the police I was not injured, but on removing my hat, I found I had a fractured skull. The bloke was all over the road. I had to swerve a number of times before I hit him.
It's very influential. That kind of anecdotal style wasn't much done in Britain now. Virtually everybody does that now.
I went to the doctor last week. I said, can I have some sleeping pills for the wife? He said, why? I said, she woke up.
I was very much inspired by Les Dawson. I think the guy is a genius.
I've just had some bad news. Tomorrow it's the mother-in-law's funeral. And she's cancelled it.
Despite his image as the working-class clown, there was much more to Les Dawson than was immediately apparent.
They put Les down because of his association with mother-in-law gags, but Les Dawson was bigger than that. He had a great brain for comedy.
Ladies and gentlemen, that journey was horrendous. Tendrils of cold, raw mountain mist encircle my stout Gannick's gaiters.
He uses language incredibly well and uses big words, and you know, he'll start a monologue and you go, wow, this is really intellectual, but he's doing it in a sort of working class way, and he's tragic as well.
My eyelids were crusted with pelmets of frost. My lips were chapped and battered like a Polish salami. And I confess at that moment in time, panic gripped me tripes.
Les Dawson had always harboured literary ambitions and wrote poetry and numerous novels before his death in 1993. He was also a gifted pianist.
And people used to think, well, he gets all the notes wrong, and that made you laugh. But tell you what, he could play a piano properly.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, where would we be without good music? Here.
We're into the top 20, so stay tuned for the best stand-up comedians of all time after the break.
He's the one that sums up that demented left-wing, in-your-face, beating you about the head, not just with the comedy, but with the ideas behind it.
I mean, don't people talk cack, eh? Oh, that Shirley Williams has got nice teeth. I'm going to vote for her. Cack, bloody cack, bloody cack. Oh, all this dog shit, I blame Ken Livingstone, you know. Cack, bloody cack. It's even worse than bus stops. Oh, there's 18 gone into town and only one come this way for a day and a half. Bloody cack. And then you grab them by the throat and smash their head against the timetable.
Alexei Sayle is the grandfather of alternative comedy. In post-punk Britain, comedy was about to get a radical overhaul, and Alexei was in at the beginning, when he became the first compere of the Comedy Store in 1979.
I'll do you, sunshine. You're not getting me off like that.
Comedy had lost its way, really. Comedy before alternative comedy, I think, was either kind of drunken racists in working men's clubs or whoever went to see Billy or Jasper.
There was no one like Alexei coming out on stage, coming out with the stuff that he did. Wonderful stuff. He used to come out and say to us, OK, I'm a Marxist-Leninist comedian. And if you bastards don't find my stuff funny, you're a load of fascist shitbags. That was the opening of his act.
You know, people often say to me, Alexei, what is alternative new wave Marxist comedy? And I say, sod off, you nosy bastard.
I used to terrify the shit out of people, but I also made them laugh. The most important thing for any comic is authority.
Now what I am is Britain's first mod two-tone poet, right? Now I think it's about time, so I've invented myself, you know? And you know, I'm trying to articulate all them thoughts us mods have, you know, like, duh. And I think I'll duff that geezer.
I mean, I was just always arrogant and thought I was absolutely brilliant, and therefore, yeah, well, yeah, of course I was on the telly, of course I had a hit record.
1, 2, 3, 4. Hello, John, got a new mo. Hello, John, got a new mo. Hello, John, got a new mo. Hello, John, got a new mo.
Yeah, why did it only get to number 14? Why wasn't it number 1, you know? Why haven't I got the Nobel Prize, you know?
Hello, John, got a new mo. Hello, John, got a new mo. He's an Avon representative. He's an Avon representative.
Yeah, I guess it made a difference.
Sayle prematurely ended touring as a stand-up in 1985 to concentrate on TV work. After several hit solo shows and even a short stint in Hollywood, he's now a successful author.
I was just like an early prototype, you know. I was like one of them cars, you know, in the early era of the automobile, that kind of run half steam and half by a kind of donkey. And then when sort of somebody like Frank Skinner came along, they thought, oh, you know, he's not calling us cunts. Pretty soon people realised they could get by without me.
I like the fact with Dylan Moran, it's not an act. That is Dylan Moran.
I'm kind of looking forward to being properly old, you know? Really, really old. So that I can lean over in a restaurant with my son or daughter and say, you know what I just did? I just pissed myself. You deal with it.
Dylan Moran has been making us piss ourselves ever since he became a comedian way back in 1991, after watching some of Ireland's best stand-ups perform at the Comedy Cellar in Dublin.
It's the way that he puts sentences together, like it's almost like he's reading his act from a novel.
I don't even see young people on the street anymore when I go out. I see youths. You know, how they're described in police radio reports. That's what I actually see. Slumped S-shapes in their hoods, beside their harrowed dogs in a bin full of burning grannies. All texting each other because they've given up on speech.
Because he's got a beautiful lilting voice, and you get the feeling that he's, you know, telling you a story. But in fact, it's very feedline, punchline, feedline, punchline. They're all jokes, and they're coming at you every 30 seconds.
It makes me feel so old. I walk by them, and I do this thing now. I've started to grab my keys. I clutch them as I pass them. I go look at them. And I push the keys between the spaces in my fingers, so that if I do have to hit one of them, I'll fucking kill them.
You sort of think he's like kind of half pissed or about to go into a kind of strange twitching coma or something.
Even their clothes intimidate me. Her T-shirt said Mongoloid Porn Inferno. And all I could think was, that sounds like such a busy evening, you know.
Al Murray shot onto the comedy scene in the early 1990s. His act then consisting of this rather odd sound effects routine. In 1993, Murray created The Pub Landlord and began filling venues all over the country.
Let's hear it for the beer! All hail to the ale! And welcome to wine for the ladies.
Al Murray came out of a school of comedians who came out of the early 90s, who were comedians doing character comedy. Taking the idea of standing up and doing straightforward, honest stand-up and just twisting it.
God bless the plucky Swiss. Hey, look at the situation these people have got themselves into. Hey, God blimey, have they got, what have they got? French to the right of them, yeah? Austrians to the left of them, Germans up above, Italians down below. You'd never sell that flat, would you?
He could sell out a live tour almost constantly. What's interesting is how easy it is for him to transfer to television, and so far he's always found that slightly difficult. But as a live stand-up, I think he's probably got no equal.
Hand it over.
No, yes. I want it,
Darling,
keep
you're a
it.
very naughty girl.
Get it.
Right, that's a confiscation. Rules is rules. It's pint for the fella, glass of white wine, fruit-based drink for the lady. Those are the rules. If you didn't have rules, then where would you be? That's right, France.
In between writing some of the best sketches in American TV history for The Sid Caesar Show and creating a comedy film genre all of his very own, Woody Allen was one of the most influential stand-ups America has ever produced.
Last year, the group broke up. I get in the mail an engraved invitation. Class reunion, the old group analysis group. All the neurotics came back, all the nail-biters and bedwetters, you know, it was a catered affair. Fabulous thing. And in the interim, 2 of the kids in the group had gotten married, and this is adorable, because it's what you'd call a mixed marriage or an intermarriage, in that the girl was paranoid, and the boy was schizophrenic. And there was a big conflict about which way they would bring up the children.
His take on the world was so definable that he could apply it to anything and make it funny.
You know, in terms of the quality of the material, was breaking new ground. I mean, it's hard now to appreciate how new that ground was, it being that personal.
This is my album, my record album, and I want you to go into stores and ask for this. And if the dealer doesn't have it, go back at night with a can of black paint and paint a swastika on the store.
But the thing about Woody is he shouldn't really be involved in this list because he hated stand-up comedy. He couldn't wait to get out of it.
I taught myself to type by memorizing the keys of the typewriter. First line is Cordy up. Second line is Astaficatical. The third is Zixfubnum. But they rarely come up in letter writing.
World-weary Jack Dee carved a niche for himself as the granite-faced, grumpy young man of comedy in the 90s.
Welcome to Happy Hour. I remember seeing him when he started and he wasn't that great, and then there was a moment where he suddenly found his own comic voice, and it was just by kind of talking about himself and his life and who he was really like. Oh, personally, I can't think of anything worse than a machine in the house that makes you think you're somewhere else. I mean, what could be actually worse than that? You put the live album on, you're there, you're at the rock festival. What do you do, go and take a piss behind the settee or something?
I just think people love hearing someone moaning.
Queue for 3/4 of an hour to get a warm can of Coke out your own kitchen. What was it, £2, is it? 2?
He's playing a character. He's playing a grumpy person, but when you actually meet him, he's not that grumpy.
My dad is obsessed with central heating. But any of you got a dad like that? Or come into the room, walk straight past you, go up to the radio, she goes... And he goes, have you been playing with that? Oh yeah, Dad, it was me. I have to confess, had some friends round, you know what it's like. We watched television and just couldn't stay off the radiator any longer.
Why get into stand-up? I thought it would be a laugh. And it is. I was asked last November to judge Mr. Gay UK. I said it would be my pleasure. He's against nature and against God and he's going to hell.
Often outrageous and always hilarious, Jimmy Carr is one of the smartest and most smartly dressed men in comedy.
I've got a friend whose nickname is Shagger. You might think, that's pretty cool. She doesn't like it. I didn't really pick my style, it picked me. That's all I could do. My girlfriend said to me, have you been having sex behind my back? I said, who the fucking hell do you think it was?
He is the modern, sophisticated... Charm is but a mask of aggression, Jimmy Carr. Every mother would like her daughter to marry this man, but behind him he has got that sword.
I still can't forgive the Germans for the way they treated my granddad during the war. Passed over for promotion time and time again. Writing comedy isn't really about writing, it's more about editing. It's about what you don't say. It's 18 years since the Chernobyl disaster. Is it just me that's surprised? Still no superheroes. A feed line is like figuring out what's the fewest words I can get down here in order to get to the funny bit. I worry about my nan. If she's alone in the house and she falls, does she make a noise? My favourite noise at a gig is a laugh followed by ooh. I met an incredible girl on the internet. Smart, sexy, uninhibited. Of course, it turned out to be a 12-year-old paraplegic boy. I'll be honest, the sex was disappointing. They've laughed because of the reflex of, I thought that was funny, and I didn't judge it. And then as soon as they've had, half a second to judge it, they go, oh, hang on, that's a bit. I live quite near a special needs school. There's a sign outside. It says, slow children. I thought, well, that can't do much for their self-esteem. But look on the positive side, of course, they can't read it.
Ricky Gervais, I've heard of him. Yeah. He's gonna be good, I think. Watch this space.
When Ricky first came to the public's attention on Channel 4's 11 o'clock show, fan mail was a little thin on the ground.
In 1903, Emmeline Pankhurst set up a new society called the Women's Social and Political Union. It believed in action, not words, and held demonstrations and attacked property in protest against the lack of women's rights. These suffragettes, or lesbians, were often arrested and put in jail. Bet they had a field day.
Ricky Gervais' 11 o'clock show character was basically an immensely un-PC, very rude, very abrasive street interviewer. People didn't realise it was a character, and people assumed that was just what he was like.
Of course, nowadays there are muff bandits in all walks of life. They still usually write biffers like K.D. Lang or Ellen, but now and again a real babe turns fishmonger, and that's a waste. Next week, gay rights.
So for a while, he was, particularly for a Channel 4 audience, he was the most hated person on television.
Ricky's next project changed all that, but rewriting sitcom history just wasn't enough for him.
Ricky did that thing that just really annoyed everyone, I think, by not only writing, the masterpiece of The Office, but also then woke up one day, yawned, scratched his arse and said, oh, I think I'll do a bit of stand-up.
I will, of course, be touching on the most violent and destructive animal on the planet. The giant gorilla, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, look at him. Some people think the most violent and destructive animal on the planet is man. Hello?
I have to say, amongst most comics, there was an attitude of, die on your bloody arse, you flipping actor, jumped up, actor, writer, think you can do stand-up. Go on, then. And then he was bloody good.
You don't need to speak French if you're English. You don't need to, You don't. You don't. If you go to France, talk a little bit louder. If he still doesn't understand what you're saying, smash the place up.
Your stand-up is very different to, like, David Brent, the part that made him so famous. It's quite cruel. He's quite cutting, isn't he? And he definitely tackles the subjects that are really edgy.
Sharks, brilliant. Nazis, rubbish. But the shark's an amazing creature. And it can taste and smell the slightest human secretion of, like, blood and sweat, 1 part in a billion from a mile away. A shark would have found Anne Frank like that.
He's just got funny bones, I think Ricky could read the phone book and he'd be laughing.
I've been to her house, it's tiny. I can't believe one of them didn't go, let's look upstairs today, you know what I mean? What the fuck were they doing? Okay, yes. Sarge, wait, what? What's that tapping noise? Rats, move on. Oh. She had time to write a novel, for Christ's sake. Well, it ends a bit abruptly. And no sequel, lazy.
I've got to apologise to you, sorry. Just before I came on, I don't know if anyone saw, I just checked my flies, and then I was aware of a few faces just looking at me like that. I was rubbing myself a little bit like a sex criminal, just in a...
Embarrassment doesn't even figure in my existence. What the hell's he doing?
Ross Noble is the supreme master of spontaneous freeform comedy. He's revered by his peers who consider him one of the most exciting comedians of our time.
Obviously, Ross Noble is wonderfully adept at taking a situation from nowhere and running with it for 20 minutes.
He has this supercharged brain that can click into action.
Let's take a monkey and attach a Breville to its leg. Oh, how cool would that be? Could you imagine that? A monkey with a Breville leg. Oh, because you could train it to just sit in your house and you could sit there like that and just go, oh, I fancy a bit of a cheese sandwich. Breville monkey!
I honestly thought that I was an observational comedian until I started getting described as surreal. And I went, oh, all right then, fair enough.
God, I wish I was Diane Fossey. She probably didn't do that when she's gorillas in the mist, you know. She probably wasn't, you know, going, I'll study these monkeys, I'll gain their trust, and then eventually, when they're sleeping, I'll cut their legs off and replace them with Brevilles.
He is just amazing, because he riffs off the audience.
I just think it's rude to ignore them, you know. Just the way I am, just, you know, on stage, off stage. I'm just very, very easily distracted.
How are you lads there, desperately trying to get to your seat without anyone noticing? Oh, sorry, I said lads, and it's a bloke and a woman. Fantastic. What a great way to start a show that is there. How are you, sir, and your incredibly butch girlfriend? That's
what I like doing is hopefully sort of involving them, so, you know, by the time it gets to the end of the show, everyone's kind of leaving going, I wish I'd had that much input.
And an excellent fringe, might I add. Well done. You know, because some people have the hair and then like a bit of a fringe, or like, but you've fully committed, haven't you? You've got fringe! There's no kind of gentle kind of, there's no like, oh, a bit of a hairline. Fringe! Really, at first, when you first came in there, I actually thought you were wearing a helmet. Do you know what I mean?
Some people describe it as, oh, it's, you know, subverting this and that, and it's, oh, it's stream of consciousness, and oh, and you say, ultimately, it's just a bloke dicking about.
What the fuck is up with the police, my God? I'm scared, I ain't getting rid of no guns, fuck that shit. And I had a cop pull me over the other day, scared me so bad, made me think I stole my own car.
I think the greatest stand-up at the moment, kind of the most important stand-up, I would say is the American comedian Chris Rock.
Get out the car, get out the fucking car! You stole this car! I'm like, damn, maybe I did.
Over the last 10 years, Chris Rock has been the most influential and funniest stand-up to come out of America. His routines provoking national debate and dividing whole communities.
He says what we're all thinking. The best compliment you can give to any comedian is, you say what I think and don't dare to say.
It's like a civil war going on with black people. And there's two sides. There's black people and there's niggers. And niggers have got to go. Every time black people want to have a good time, ignorant-ass niggas fuck it up.
Rock's most controversial work to date is the Emmy Award-winning Niggers vs. Blacks routine from 1996. Attacking sections of the black community, Rock was lauded and lambasted in equal measure.
Nah, man. And I see some black people looking at me. Man, why you gotta say that? Why you gotta say that? It ain't us, it's the media. Please cut the fucking shit, okay? 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 When I go to the money machine tonight, right? I ain't looking on my back for the media. I'm looking for niggas.
Thankfully, I think Black America, there's a lot more middle-class blacks now who, you know, are slightly like everyone are slightly ashamed of part of your own culture as well. And for Chris to pinpoint that is, you know, that's kind of been on the zeitgeist of comedy.
You know what the worst thing about niggas? Niggas always want some credit for some shit they supposed to do. For some shit they just supposed to do. A nigga will brag about some shit a normal man just does. A nigga will say some shit like, I take care of my kids. You're supposed to, you dumb motherfucker. What you talking about?
Hello. I'm looking for my friend.
Those of us of a certain age, we tend to think that alternative comedy started in 1980, 79, but there are these funny people that are like prefigured it, like Victoria Wood.
She's got that dangly earrings with sausages on them. When they're not in her ears.
Victoria Wood is a phenomenon. Writer, actor, singer and comedian. She has done pretty much everything you possibly can when it comes to comedy.
Victoria Wood has that same quality that Alan Bennett has, this humdrum life, the profound and mundane in the same sentence, and that's what's so great about her.
Huge. Everybody in my class was enormous. They had to stop us doing cross-country running because we dented a viaduct going on. So everybody was on a diet the whole time, and we thought that yoghurt made you thin, so we used to eat yoghurt all the time. And we used to say, Sandra, if you're going up to town, get us a raspberry yoghurt. If they haven't got raspberry, get something else. She used to come back and say, I couldn't get your raspberry yoghurt. Forgot your meat potato pie.
What's really weird about her material is it's not things I'm interested in, like the issues of middle-aged women or cake, but she just has got such a craftsmanship about it.
So I'm thinking, now what size am I now? You know, because I wasn't sure, like 16, 18. Look at Vanessa Feltz, she looks about to be the same size as me. She's a size 12, oddly enough. And in Gap, I'm only a size 12 because they're American. In Marks and Spencer's, I'm only a size 3 because they don't want to upset anybody. And in Topshop, my hip set off an alarm as I go through.
Victoria Wood is, for my money, the only really successful comedian this nation's seen in this last few years. A funny lady.
Let's do it! Let's do it! Anyone's around to rave! Let's go! Cause I know just how I want you to behave! No bleakly, no meekly, beat me on the bottom with a woman's weekly! Let's get it tonight! Thank you.
So I better introduce myself, because there's a few of you thinking, this roadie's a bit up himself, isn't he?
He goes off on these weird tangents, which are quite surreal, but you go along with it.
My mind's starting to unravel so soon. Like a tapestry and some angry kittens.
He looks funny. You can't help it. Look at the man.
So good evening, I am Bill Bailey, 1982 Michael Bolton Stars in Their Eyes regional finalist.
Next, Bill Bailey, self-confessed Klingon lookalike and master of meandering surrealist comedy.
It's the thing that Python did, where you take a highbrow subject and talk about it in a lowbrow way, or lowbrow subject and talk about it in a highbrow way. Those juxtapositions, those status exchanges are great.
But it's very difficult when you're in a different country and somebody says to you, what's Britain like? I mean, what do you say? What's Britain like? It's just, you know, we've got nectar points, you know. They're quite handy. We have strong prevailing southwesterly winds. 52% of our days are overcast. So as a nation, we're infused with a wistful melancholy.
His approach to his comedy actually comes from this sort of Molière philosophical French comedic tradition. And what he does is he slaps